What's up, fruitful investors? We're back with another couples video, and in this video we're going to discuss how to get your partner or your spouse on board with your real estate investing business. Now, the majority of the real estate investors that I personally know who are crushing it in real estate usually have their spouse on board with the business in some way. Maybe they're doing a small part of the business, or they're full on in the business with them, buying real estate, analyzing deals, doing the whole thing.
But sometimes it's hard to convince your partner to come on board, especially if this is going to be your first investment. So some of the tips that we'll talk about today, I think, will really help navigate that initial discussion to help convince your partner that real estate investing is something that the two of you should get into.
For those of you who don't know, this is Rachel. She's my spouse and my main partner in real estate, also the one who cracks the whip on me all the time. But let's talk to her about how she got into real estate and how we're a team.
So if you don't know, Matt and I have been together since we were 16. So we've definitely been through this real estate journey together. But it wasn't until we were, 22,
about our first one.
22, when Matt decided that real estate investing was definitely something he wanted to get into. And now I've always been really financially driven, very financially independent. By the time I was 18, I had over $40,000 in my bank account from working various part-time jobs. I was fully funding myself through university. I bought my own car. And so when Matt had come to me and said, I want to invest in real estate, I was for sure a little bit apprehensive. It is a huge financial commitment, especially if you're putting up the money on your own,
definitely.
and especially when it's your first time. And so he had come to me and had asked if I would give him a loan so that he could pay off his truck, right? Your truck, so that you would qualify for your first mortgage. And you had asked me for how much?
It was about $20,000 to pay off the truck. So my TDS and GDS ratios were out. If you don't know what that means, basically it was hard for me to get financing. At that time I was getting qualified for a mortgage at 20 years old, 21 years old. I was a carpenter, freshly out of high school, making at that time $12 an hour. So my numbers were really tight, and my mortgage broker said, if you pay off this truck and get rid of it, you'll for sure get a loan. And we ended up buying a really cheap small townhome for $135,900 when we first bought it, but I had to pay off that truck. So Rachel actually loaned me $20,000. This is how it all started. How would you say that return on investment has been?
Well, I usually joke with people, especially with Matt, that it was definitely the best investment that I've ever made. I think the $20,000, well, you paid me back, and then plus, extra.
Always pay your partners back, every single penny, even if it's your spouse.
So definitely it was a good investment, but I was for sure a little bit nervous when you are like in your early 20s and giving somebody $20,000, even if it's just your partner, and we had already been together for a long time at that point. But it's $20,000. I worked really hard for that. I was using my OSAP as leverage as well.
Smart, very smart.
So I actually, each year I used OSAP to pay off my tuition, and then I just kept building my savings. And so this was something that, ultimately I felt comfortable, loaning Matt that money. And so that really began our journey into real estate investing. And then we've slowly I've slowly become more and more involved. And the reason being, I think, is some of the tips that we'll be discussing today.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of, how to get your partner on board, especially if they are a little bit scared.
Number one, you want to be very clear on your goals about what you want in real estate and what you want out of life in general. So for those of you who watch my videos, you obviously already know that my main goal is to live in Costa Rica or Hawaii or somewhere tropical like that and have my real estate fund my business. So that's my goal, and to have your partner kind of on board with that in some way is very important. What would you say your goals are from real estate investing?
Right, and I wouldn't say that you necessarily have to have the exact same goal. So, of course I would love to live in Costa Rica. For me, that's not really the end all and be all. It is for me. No. It is definitely for Matt, but definitely not for me. Well, I would love to live in a warm climate. I think my true goal is just to be able to have time to do my hobbies and not have to feel obligated to work all the time. So basically having some extra freedom. And if I can do that in a warm environment, then definitely I'm on board. But to approach your partner, maybe begin with a discussion on, what are your goals as a couple?
Yeah.
What are your goals individually? And maybe let them know how real estate investing can help them reach that goal, maybe beyond what they would normally have achieved through just like their
job,
career, their job, etc.
Yeah. And a good way to do that is, you guys know I love doing this, making a vision board, maybe as a couple, which is a really cool concept. So make your own vision board as a couple about the things you want to achieve in life, what you want your life to look like on a daily basis, etc. And then maybe through that brainstorming together, you'll know exactly, what the real goals are from real estate, which will make things very clear. Because the more clear you are, the easier it's going to be to actually achieve those goals, and the better you're going to work together when you know what end you're doing all of this for.
For sure. Like Matt and I always make a vision board on New Year's Eve.
We're nerds. We don't party.
We've been doing it for the past couple years, and it's a really nice visual reminder as the year goes on, what you're actually working for, and what real estate can bring for you.
Yeah. So that's a really cool activity you can do with your spouse to really get them on board, having fun, dreaming, thinking about what life can be because of real estate investing. If you guys know, I love marketing and selling, and it's all about getting down to the emotions, right? So you don't want to come to your partner and say, look at this deal, look at this cash flow. If we buy this property, we're going to make $150 cash flow or $1,000 cash flow. That's not really going to make your partner come on board. That's something you tell a very sophisticated investor, talk about cash flow and stuff. But when it comes to a person who doesn't really know much about real estate, you really want to get to the emotions, right? So you're kind of marketing and selling your partner, which is a little weird, but definitely a better strategy than just saying it's all about cash flow. So saying things like, we could go travel 3 to 4 times a year if we buy this property or buy the next property. Okay, now you're going to start changing them and getting more comfortable with real estate, right?
Yeah, or if, they want to spend more time at home, you can say, maybe you can go from full-time to part-time hours.
Yeah.
That can be something that's very alluring to a lot of people.
Definitely. So the second thing you can do is assigning jobs or duties to your spouse to really slowly ease them into the business. So for example, I usually do all of the deal finding, all the marketing, all the videos usually. Rachel does all of the renovation, color schemes and design. So that's kind of her role. And then she's recently going to start blogging for me, making notes through my videos, etc. So she's slowly easing into the business and being more of an active role. But when we're doing flips actively, she's like full on part of the process.
And I think that's something that can help too, if they're feeling a bit apprehensive. If you get them on board, delegating roles to them, they can see that it's not so scary, that they can get tangible outcomes through their hard work. And maybe not even hard work. I wouldn't say that it's hard work. I don't have to put in a ton of effort. It's actually quite fun, and they might find that it actually gets incorporated into what they would describe as a hobby. That's
the thing. When you're working as a couple and you're obsessed with a goal, which is living with freedom. For me, it's Costa Rica, warm climates, etc. It doesn't feel like work. I would say I work a lot all the time, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like I'm having fun. It just feels like I'm playing a game for myself. That's the way you can go about it too. The more you start working together, the more fun it'll be, and you won't even realize that you're working.
And it's nice to do something like this with your significant other, because you're working towards a goal, you're doing it together. So instead of coming home and watching TV all the time, you would work on this together. So you feel like you're actually achieving something, which I think can be super motivating.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel like you're actually contributing to something other than just vegging out on the couch, which is awesome.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
You get kind of sick of that from time to time.
Yeah, and I think you all should be even closer as a couple. When you're really building your empire and your financial goals, that's going to really bring you together a lot closer than, like Rachel was saying, just coming home, from a shitty day of work and just bitching about it, turning on the TV. That's probably not going to be the best relationship, right? So it really brings you together, which is pretty cool. That's a cool unintended consequence of building your future together.
Yeah, 100%.
So the third thing you want to do is challenge your spouse or partner's objections. So if they say things like, well, what if we get a bad tenant? What if the tenant breaks the house and we lose money, etc.? You really want to challenge those objections with, number one, what if they don't, right? What if none of that happens? What if our tenants are amazing? But also, ease their fears if we do have a bad tenant, well, we're going to hire a property manager who specializes with dealing with bad tenants. They're going to get them out, they're going to take care of everything for us, etc. So you kind of want to counter their objections with how you're going to take care of it.
Right, I think probably your first step is if they're feeling like, they don't they're not really on board with the real estate thing, you want to figure out why. And so, ask them, why is it that you're feeling like you don't want to do this? What's the problem? And then once you can identify what the core problem is, you can actually try to alleviate that. So like Matt said, if they're worried about tenants not paying rent and that means that you might default on a mortgage, you can tell them like, we're going to screen tenants really well, we're going to hire property managers. Like there's lots of steps in place to prevent those things from happening.
Definitely.
So we can definitely set up a system where we're protected from those risks. So it ultimately ends up being a little bit less risky than I think what most people initially think about when they think about investing in real estate.
Definitely.
So I think it is super important to identify what their fears are and then to alleviate them as much as possible. Like obviously there's always going to be some risk, but I don't think that risk is really as big as most people think they are.
Yeah, and if your partner's really afraid of those things and is like not on board, is not feeling it, you could always say, okay, well maybe then we'll invest in single family properties, which is something I always talk about, something that we invest incredibly heavily in because freedom is very important to both of us. When we're away, when we're traveling, when we're doing whatever, we don't want to be getting phone calls from our property manager saying how our tenants didn't pay rent, they broke the house, etc. So that's why we really invest in single family because it's predictable, it's boring, it attracts the highest quality tenant in long-term real estate. And we've been investing now for 9 years, almost going on 10 years, and we've only had one tenant issue, in the whole 10 years almost, where the tenant didn't pay rent and they moved out 2 months later. It was a fairly smooth process. That was the worst thing that ever happened to us with over 15 properties. So it's not to say that those things will be, they'll never happen. It'll always be that smooth for everyone. But when you're buying good quality properties in good areas, especially single family, the fears of bad tenants go way down as opposed to like a multifamily or especially a student property, etc., right?
Yeah, and I think our natural tendency is to do like the what ifs, and the what ifs tend to be negative. Like what if they don't pay rent? But I think you had mentioned earlier, like, well, what if they do? Like, I think you need to help your partner retrain their brain and sort of flip the script so that instead of they're thinking of what if, the bad thing happens, what if the good thing happens? Like we can retire sooner, we can go on family vacations together, we can have more time together as a couple. Like there's all these benefits, and I think our human nature is to think of maybe some of the negatives.
Always.
So re-emphasize the positives here, and just let them know that they're definitely not alone. Like you understand that they have fears, but at the end of the day, if we do this together, we can achieve a lot of really great things.
Sure. Real estate is a very, very powerful thing, especially, like I said in the beginning, when you're a couple doing it together. It's super powerful. So the last thing you can do to really get them on board is to treat yourself. The most important part of all of this is to treat yourself. When you accomplish a goal, when you're doing well in real estate, when you buy your first property, go on date nights, take a trip, like really treat yourself from all the things you've accomplished, which is just gonna fuel, the ambition even more. You're gonna get closer as a couple. You're gonna want success even more. That's a really cool thing. So something we always do is go on several trips a year. We usually try to go on 3 to 4 trips a year, 2 weeks each. And we're usually going to really cool exotic places, which I'll show you right now. And another trip right here.
Necessarily need to go on trips. Say you have a family, you have kids, they're maybe young, you're not ready to go on trips. You can go on a date night, maybe go somewhere a little bit extra fancier than what you're typically used to. And there's something really freeing about going out and not having to worry too much about your finances.
Definitely.
Obviously, Matt and I aren't really people of extremes. We're pretty frugal. But there is something to be said about just going out and not having to worry, is this dinner gonna set us back? Can I have that dessert at the end of dinner, or is that just an extravagant expense? And for the most part, I think desserts are pretty extravagant, but you can treat yourself. I mean, this is the benefit of what you're doing, and I think that's a real positive.
For sure.
And so yeah, you do want to make sure that you're treating yourself. You want to make sure you're treating your partner and you're doing stuff together in your partnership and as a family.
Yeah, like for us, travel is a very important part of our life. We love it. That's our thing. And when we go on a trip, it just, I don't know about you, but like it totally amps me up to go to the next one, to keep going, because I love leaving cold Canada and going to cool places. That's the best thing for me. That's the whole reason why I personally do real estate, is just freedom and doing what I want, when I want, not having to worry about money. You know, as I say a lot on this channel, I grew up in a fairly frugal family, not by choice. We had to be. So to have money now in our life is amazing. You know, we're not worrying really at all about money. Obviously we're frugal as hell, but if something happens, we're good, we're fine because of our real estate. And that's a really, really cool feeling, really comfortable for me and my lifestyle. You know, I absolutely love that.
Yeah, likewise.
So that's the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, if you like this video, please click like right below. It goes a long way to helping these videos get more views so I can help more people like you achieve amazing goals in real estate. We'll see you in the next video.